Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Assalamu alaikum. This presentation is about clinical documentation. At the start, we have to define what is the medical record. So let's define medical record. It's a file containing group of documents and or forms that containing all patient medical information for each separate visit to a healthcare institute. There is another simple definition, which is a chronological, means arranged, written account of the patient's examination and treatment that include the patient's medical history, complaints, the physician's physical findings, the results of diagnostic tests and procedures, medication and therapeutic procedures. So it's a file containing all evidence of patient care. It's a document, it's a forms, it's containing all information we need about the patient himself. So what's the importance of the medical record? Meaning what kind of information we can take from the medical record? Meaning what's the uses of the medical record? What's the medical record tells us? We can find in the medical record past history and the present condition of the patient. The medical record is considered as a communication tool among healthcare providers. It's a very rich source of legal documentation. We can take a lot of things related to legal issues from the medical record. We can find inside the medical record patient and staff education. It's an evidence and proof that the healthcare staff doing their job regarding education. Quality control and researches. We can take a lot of information helping us in establishing KPIs, indicators, and for research's use. Documentation for billing and coding. This is regarding the paying and the cost of the services, especially if we are dealing with the companies related to insurance or insurance companies. So again, what's the importance of the medical record? It's a rich source of information we can take general information from the medical records like name, addresses, ages, nationalities, and so on. Contact information, any patient, we can go through the medical record, because you know that the first page of the medical record, it should containing all the relevant information with the contact number, with the first kin, with a photo of the ID card of the patient itself. It can tell us about occupations. It can tell us about medical history of the patient, current complaints, healthcare needed or healthcare needs, treatment plan or services provided to the patient, radiology and laboratory results, and response to the care if the patient is improved or not shifted or not transferred or not, and so on. So all of this we can know it from the medical record. Again, it's a legal source, as we said before. A rich legal source for information. So what's the legal guidelines for the patient record? It supports a malpractice claim. We can know who did something wrong from the medical record and what was the wrong issue. Again, it supports as a defense for the malpractice claim. If someone have a claim against the hospital or against a healthcare worker, we can get the evidence of innocent, he's innocent, that he did not do the wrong thing, again from the medical record. It's a backup for financial records. Documentation, everything is documented inside the medical record. Medical care evaluation and instructions done by any healthcare giver, we can find it inside the medical record. And patient complaint also, it's a source of legal information inside the medical record. A very important question, and we have to clarify it to all of ourselves, that who have the authority to write in a medical record? Anyone in the healthcare institute can document or can write or can put his notes inside the medical record? The answer is no. It's restricted only to a group of healthcare givers that have a direct contact with the patient. We will give an example for them. Of course, doctors can write down in the medical record, nurses and some paramedicals and the medical healthcare givers, physicians, dentists, nurses, patient educators, other medical and paramedical staff, for example, the respiratory therapists. Those people have the right to document inside the medical record or have the authority. Others not. For example, we did not mention here that for example, the hospital director, he have no rights to write inside the medical record in almost all facilities we have experienced with. So those are the most important. Healthcare giver have the authority to write inside the medical record. Okay, what are the most important documentation instructions? If you want your entry inside the medical record to become complete, you have to follow some instructions. Some of them are the following. Health caregiver shall be responsible for the completion of the healthcare record for his patients regarding to his forms. For example, physician, they have to finish the physician forms. Nurses, they have to finish the nurses forms, and so on. So the healthcare giver is responsible for his entry. Medical director have the ultimate responsibility for evaluation of patient health records prepared by physicians. So the ultimate response is over the medical director. He have to follow up. He have to give instruction. He have to make sure that the physicians are trained for the correct patient medical record entries. The same for nurses. The same for healthcare educator. So every head of department is responsible for his people. Medical director for physicians, nurse director for nurses, and so on. Again, reviewers, staff in the medical record department should review all coming records from the department on a daily basis. When the medical record is finished inside the ward, they will push it to the medical record department. We have coders, people named reviewers. The reviewers in the medical record should review the medical record on daily basis, and any defects, they have to send it to the concerned staff. Healthcare record committee, medical record committee, shall periodically assess the quality of healthcare record to ensure the medical staff compliance established standards. We have two types of medical record review, open and closed, and we will discuss it in the near slide. So here again, we have to have a committee. This committee is responsible for reviewing the medical record and finding any defects and report it to the concerned people. So again, all entries in the healthcare record must be clear, legible, should be legible, and contain identification data or information, including at least patient full name, health record number, required demographic by your facility. So any form inside the medical record, we have to document the demographics, especially the full name, 3 names or 4 names according to your hospital policy, and the medical record number. Then every single entry should be legible. It should be legible and clear. We can read it. It's very clear, because we saw some physicians, they write something, it's not legible, it's not clear. Again, all entries should be in blue or black in healthcare record, so you don't have authority to use the red pen, only blue and black. And after you finished your entry, you have to put your name, signature, date, and time with the stamp. If you do all of this, if you make sure that your form, you put the demographics on the form, and you make your entry with a blue or black, very legible, very clear, sign, stamp, date, time, it's considered as a clear or a correct entry in the medical record. Again, never delegate the authority of your stamp to anybody. Do not erase or cross out or use the fluid or liquids for any mistake. So what I will do if I did any mistake in my entry, you have to put a thin line over the wrong word and put the word error, then correct it. Then you have to put your name, date, time, and signature with a stamp that I made an error in the entry here and I corrected it. You don't have the right to erase or put a cross or using the fluid for it. Again, you have to commit with the approved list of abbreviation, and never use the prohibited abbreviation, because it's the medical record is a way of communication between the healthcare givers. This is an example. You have to make here a thin line over the word, put error, and correct it, then write your name, date, time with the stamp. So what's the patient's rights regarding to medical record? Before telling you what's the patient rights regarding to his medical record and information inside the medical record, there is two very, very important notes. Note number one, medical record itself is a property to the healthcare facility. It's belonging to us in the hospital or in the PHC. It's ours as a medical record. But the information and data inside the medical record, it's a property to the patient. So you cannot disclose any of the data or information inside the medical record to anyone unless you have a permission from the patient. But the medical record itself, the forms inside it, it's the property of the healthcare institute. So what are the patient's rights? Number one, the right to limit or request restriction on their PHI, which is protected health information, and its use and disclosure. The right to confidential communication, the right to inspect and obtain a copy. Patient can ask for a copy of his medical record or the information inside the medical record. The right to request an amendment to their medical record. He can tell you, do not allow anyone to go through my medical record, and the right to know if there is any information disclosed to any facility or to anyone. So those are the patient rights regarding to his medical record. So what's PHI? We told you that it's the protected health information. Some important SBAHI standards related to medical record. What we have discussed right now, you can find it in the SBAHI standards regarding medical record. I think it's SBAHI standard related to medical record are 17. The chapter of medical record is 17 standards, as I remember. I will give you here only 3 to 5 standards to show what we have discussed right now. Standard number 4, medical record contains sufficient information to promote continuity and the coordination of care and documentation among care providers. So the medical record contains sufficient information, demographic, history, examination, tests, laboratory and radiological tests, discharge summary, notes, medication sheets, assessment, SPAR, hand-off technique. Everything should be there and clear, so it can make it's very easy communication between physician and physician, nurse and nurse, physician and nurse, and so on. Medical record standard number 5 is talking about the hospital has a complete and accurate medical record for every patient. Every single patient have a separate medical record. All hospitals and define a policy, so we have to have a policy for initiation for medical record for every patient, and who have the authority to make entries in the medical record, as we discussed it before. All entries in the medical record must be legible. We discussed it before. Clinical staff authorized to make entries in the medical record receive formal training, as we said before. The medical director have to ensure that all the physicians have training on how to make entry inside the medical record. Nursing supervisors and nursing department have to make sure about the training of their staff, and so on. The author of each entry must be identified and authenticated by official stamp, signature, written initial or computer entry, date, time, and stamp with signature, as we said before. Medical record completion is a requirement within 30 days. If anyone have entry inside the medical record and the reviewer or anyone looking at the medical record find there is a defect inside the medical record regarding the completeness, we have to send this medical record to the concerned staff, and he have to finish it within 30 working days. And it should be supervised by his supervisor. 5.6, the hospital has a policy to deal with delinquent medical record. If any file is not complete, what our policy to deal with, and those files are called delinquent, not completed. The most responsible physician is responsible for the completion, we said before. Who have the responsibility for completion of the medical record? The physician or health caregiver. Who have the ultimate responsibility? His supervisor or director. Let's go for another standard, which is a medical record 7. A discharge summary is completed for discharged patient. If you are discharging the patient, you have to have a complete discharge summary. What's the requirement here? The reason for patient admission, why we admit this patient. Patient diagnosis, brief summary about hospitalization, what kind of therapies, consultation, intervention, results of any important diagnostic tests, a list of medication used, any surgery or procedure done, the patient condition at discharge, all medication to be taken by the patient after discharge at home, and any special care for patient required after discharge like physiotherapy or some rehabilitation. Another medical record standard, which is number 11, very important one, we have to have a system that enable the medical record linkage. We are talking now about voluminous medical record. We have a very, very big, huge medical record. Some patient, like chronic patients, especially, for example, sickle cell anemia, they can visit the hospital daily or 2 times a day. Bronchial asthma, they can visit the hospital too much. So you can find their files in the big and huge file. What we have to do is, very simply, you have to have volumes of this medical record. Someone we are dealing with, which containing a summary for all the past visits, all the visits. For example, this patient is bronchial asthma. He visits the hospital always. The most important thing when he come, he have to take bronchial dilators like salbutamol or minophelin, whatever. This patient have hypertension, so no need to give corticosteroid in high dose. This patient is allergic to Voltaren, and so on. You have to put a summary for it, calling it volume number 2 or 1 according to the policy in your hospital. Then you have to keep the very big old one according to your policy for what time, and we will call it the overflow record. So don't allow the physician and nurses to search in a very, very, very big medical records. You have to make 2 volumes, small volume and big volume. The small volume we are dealing with frequently, and the older volume is a backup volume. Another standard, number 15, the hospital have a system for tracking of the medical record. Any medical record going out from the medical record department, we have to have a system to track it up. Where is the medical record? So you have to have a logbook or something on the system, form or something, that this medical record is taken by that department, that time, and when it come back, it come that time. When shifted from one department to one department, when it shifted and who shifted it, and who's responsible to bring it back to the medical record. Number 16, the hospital use standardized form in the medical record. It's not allowed by any hospital to have two kinds of one form inside the medical record. For example, we are talking about the charge summary form. It's not allowed to find 2 types of it. It should be one kind of forms only inside the medical record. If you want to modify, it's okay. So it should be approved by the medical record committee. Then we have to withdraw the old form and give the new form to all departments to be used. The hospital assign a structure to control the development of the medical record forms, which is the medical record committee. Medical record committee is responsible for approving of any new form should be put in the medical. And at last, the last one is the hospital has a system in place for monitoring completion of the medical record. The medical records are reviewed on an ongoing basis. We will review the medical record on a monthly basis or a quarterly basis according to the hospital policy. The review includes a representative sample. Of course, we cannot review all the medical record because for 1 month you can find 300, 700, and by quarterly you can find 1,000 or more. So you have to take sample. You have to use a standardized sampling technique, and which is the most important is the GCI. You will take 5% of the discharge, 5% of the discharge within 1 month or 3 months. The review is conducted by a care providers authorized to make entries in the medical record. The people who have to do the review is the people who have the authority to document inside the medical record. Of course, physician, nurses, and so on. The review process focuses on appropriate and comprehensive documentation with the timelines and eligibility. Data come out of the reviewing. We should use it for making an improvement projects of improvement activities. I will mention it in a few seconds. We have two types of medical review. We have open and closed. Open means the patient is still inside the hospital. He's still admitted. So we can review the medical record and we can go back to the patient to ask him anything about the data, and we can ask the physician or nurse or the healthcare giver about any defects. But the closed, the medical record review, is when the patient is discharged already at home. So we cannot ask the patient, we cannot find the patient. So we will take a sample, as we said before, 5%, and we are asking a committee to sit and review it. Then we have to document the results in a special form. It's on Sebahi website for open and closed. Then we can give it to quality people to help us in making charts for what's good, what's bad, and what kind of improvement we can do. And those improvements should be approved by a committee, like quality committee, like medical record committee, or the executive committee or medical board inside the hospital. Before we when to say the medical record is complete, if it's containing the demographic data, all complete. If we have history and the physical examination, assessment comprehensive. Comprehensive assessment means you do the physical assessment, you do the social assessment, nutritional assessment, psychological assessment, and everything. If we find the progress note for the physician is complete, nurse's progress note complete, physician orders complete, laboratory and radiology results, discharge summary, operative note if the patient have surgery, consultation forms and reports, consents, the general consent and the informed consent for operation or invasive procedure, care plan is complete, triage forms, the records if the patient have anesthesia, restraint form if needed, admission requests, patient and the family education forms, medication order, vital signs charts, nutrition and forms. Now, before we finish our presentation, we will ask ourselves a few questions to know that we take any benefit from this presentation or no. I'll give you only a few questions. You have to put right or true or false. And if it's false, what would be the right thing? It's very simple. It will test your information about this presentation. Number one, surgery department, head of department can call medical record department asking for a release of a medical record. Again, the head of department of surgery is calling the medical department, please send me the file of this patient or the medical record number 12702. This is correct or not correct? Who have the authority to do something like this? So it's up to your information, true or false. Two, medical record is a property of the patient. The medical record itself is belonging to the patient. It's correct or it's true or false? We can use liquid to correct errors in the medical record. That's true or false? Liquid. All healthcare providers have the rights to write in the medical record. Anyone inside the hospital can write in the medical record. Is it true or false? Consistency of the medical record is responsibility of the medical record, the head of department. The one is taking the responsibility of the medical record department. Is he responsible for the consistency of all medical records or not? If yes, it's okay. If not, who have the responsibility to do this? And number six, the only difference between open and closed medical review is the team who will do it. We just mentioned it in the previous slide. It's the only difference between open and closed medical review is the only team. The team who will do it, that's the only difference? Yes or no, true or false? And at last, hospital director should put his notes during his rounds in the medical record. Hospital director is doing a round. He finds something wrong in the medical record. He will put notes in the medical record. This is true or false? Thank you very much for you. And until we will meet again in a new presentation. If you have a question, feel free to send it to me down here or through my emails if you have my email or phone number. Thank you very much. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.